Welcome to Sage Sisters. We are sisters, besties, moms, and co-founders having a fun catch-up on parenting and life. Hey, I'm Anne.
And I'm Kate. Good to see you, Anne. It's been a minute.
I know. I was off all last week for spring break, and you graciously held down the fort of Sage while I was gone, but it does feel like I've been gone forever. It was a long week. Yeah.
Do you need a vacation from your vacation, or was it relaxing?
It was not relaxing, but it was awesome.
Okay.
We traveled to Boston and went out with the kids, spent a few days there, and then went and saw family at a beach house just north of Boston.
Yeah.
It was such a great trip. We had the best family time with Phil's family.
Mm-hmm.
We celebrated his grandmother, and it was just so cool getting the kids together with their cousins, and it was all the feels. Like, we just had the best time, and I love his family. It was so fun. But like traveling back, it's just, you know, we were go for 6 days straight, and the trip back was a little bit rough. That'll be my low.
Okay.
But yeah, you know, when you get back and you're in your own space, it feels so nice. But it was a great week overall. So,
well, I was keeping up a little bit as you posted pictures on the shared album.
yes.
So they looked very cute, but I was excited for the color commentary this week.
Well, the kids just like, they didn't want to leave. And when we were leaving Boston, they were like, this is the best city ever. Can we come back? And then when we were leaving the beach house, they were like in tears, hugging their cousins, which was like, you know, heartbreaking and heartwarming at the same time.
Totally.
So, and it was the first time that the two older ones it was so fun to explore a new city. Like, I see travel being fun now. And Lily's pretty easy for her age, to be honest. She's about to be 3 in 2 weeks. But she's just kind of goes with the flow.
Cool.
So I think we're going to do more travel. Yeah.
Love it. Good for you
Yeah.
guys. That's awesome.
How are you guys this week?
We're good.
I left you with all the work, so unfortunately you were probably very busy. Yeah.
Yeah, I was cursing your name. No, I don't even think it was your absence. I just had a lot going on last week. I was all over the place, which I'll get to in my high lows. Should we get into it?
Sure. Let's jump in.
What's your high?
My high was not just the trip, but the city of Boston. What a high. I have been there before, but this is the first time with the kids and doing like just different things in the city. It's such an awesome city.
What kind of stuff did you guys do?
Well, it brought me back to, it kind of reminds me of a smaller Chicago. And, you know, you and I lived in Chicago, so it was giving me that type of feel. But we went to a Celtics game. We went to the North End in Little Italy and ate a few times.
Oh, so fun.
The food, that was my favorite neighborhood. Like, if I had to move to Boston tomorrow, I said I would move to the North End or right around there. It was such a charming neighborhood in the city. We did, one of the best things we did was a tour of Fenway Park.
Cute.
And the kids loved it. They did such a good detailed job. And then we had fun, like, you know, we were teaching the kids the accent. And, you know, Ace was wanting to try lobster. I can't do the accent. That was awful. But everything was a no R, you know.
Yeah.
Hawk the caw. He kept doing that lobster. It was cute.
That's really cute.
And then we did kids museum, aquarium. We did so much in a few days. But it was fun. And the city is just dynamite. Like, I want to go back with kids. I want to go back with babysitters to go out and explore the city with Phil more, but it was great.
It is a pretty city. I remember, I haven't been there in I can't think. So it's 5-10 years ago.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking it's clean. This is
so clean, so pretty. I think they've done a lot in recent years. Locals were telling us, you know, it's come a long way, but they keep it so clean.
Yeah.
You know, it's not huge. It's kind of a smaller, compact city. Which is great. You can get around all over the place. When we were doing activities, it wasn't like a big deal to go from activity to activity that wasn't right next to each other. And you could drive. You know, the only thing I said is, like, I do think I'm turning into our father, because every time we travel, I'm just like, God, this is so expensive. Like, you know, but parking was like crazy. It would be like, you know, $30 to $60 for an hour. It's like, are you joking me? So I was turning into our dad with, like, under the breath, like, come on. This is
You had a rental car, or did you not just take taxis?
Rental minivan with car seats put in.
Okay.
And
car seats is a thing.
It's a thing. And it was so nice. And every time a minivan just fits what we need. And every time we're in a minivan, I say, I do not want a minivan of my own, because I just can't. Something about it doesn't sit well with me. It makes me feel too old. But my gosh, they're convenient. It was so nice.
We usually rent a minivan when we're on vacation, and Chris is always like, you should get one of these. You should get one of these. And I look at him like, you should get one then if you want it so bad.
Exactly.
Like, Well, why don't you lose your truck and why don't you get a minivan?
Well,
you feel so strongly about it.
Driving around in a Buick Enclave, it's not like that's a cool car, but it just, for some reason, being an SUV makes me feel better.
Totally.
It's like,
yeah, it's the mom SUV. It's just on the edge of minivan life.
100%. So
although I do get it. If you've taken the dive, there's no judgment here. The magic doors, the spaciousness. It's like, I do understand.
It's the smart call. It's what I need. It would fit my lifestyle better. I can't do it yet, but let's
see.
It's nice. So anyways, Boston, highly recommend.
Love it.
With kids, without, it was so charming.
So cute.
Yeah. What's your high this week?
We are in this glorious lull between sports and activities. I got to sleep in on Saturday. It's been a minute.
What does sleep in look like? What time is that for you?
Well, the kids come in when they get up. I told them to sleep in, but they really can't hang for later than like 7:45, 8, which is still pretty good.
That's nice. Yeah.
But they come in, they wake me up, and then I tell them to get out of here.
Scram.
And then I get like another maybe half hour. 45 minutes.
So you're in the 8s. That's nice.
Oh, I didn't come down on Saturday till 8:45.
That's nice.
Luxurious.
Yeah. I love it. I can't remember the last time it's happened, so I'm not even going to say I love it. I don't remember that. But it sounds great. But I do feel like it would make me feel a little like I'm behind the rest of the day. Did you have that where you felt like you... Oh, okay.
Your anxiety is so out of control.
It's true.
No, I completely relished in it. I was super grateful for it.
Okay.
But this is the thing. We didn't have a million things to do this weekend. It was sports. We had some, but it was like the last game of flag football. And then, the little party. But Grace has no weekend sports right now because we finished with basketball and swim meets haven't started yet. And I'm really proud. I take full credit because this is the year of Les.
Yeah.
And I kind of talked her out of softball, which she just didn't love last year. So it's like,
yeah,
we got some lull time and it's been wonderful. And it's freed up time for family time. I took the kids. I do the once a year Color Me Mine trip.
Yeah.
I do hate that place because it's so freaking expensive.
How much did you spend? Like, honestly,
$90.
Yeah. Just doing one thing, one item.
I didn't even paint. It was the kids each did an item. And then we made like a little gift for Grandpa's birthday when he comes out in a couple weeks. This will be a test to see if he listens to this podcast. But
just make sure he takes it home because a couple times we've given him stuff and they get left and then I have to hide it so the kids don't know.
I'll just put it in his bag.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was cute, but it was like, that's the stuff when you're busy, never gets in there. Yeah. So we had a little, Grace and I, we didn't have anything to do. We wanted to get out of the house. We went for a little Starbucks run, a little Starbucks on Sunday. It was cute.
Here's the thing is we talk about all the time, like let your kids be kids. When you actually have moments like this, it does push the agenda to do less. Like it's so nice having that family time and to not feel rushed going back and forth.
Like, I can't tell you, like last week was super busy with work. To sleep in and recharge in that way.
Yeah.
Man, it's a real game changer versus the weekends being just as busy. And then it's like, you just feel like it's like deficit. It's like,
yeah,
I felt like it was a really recharging weekend. And I just love the lull here. And even like my tennis season ended. So I have a couple weeks with no tennis here.
Yeah, that's nice.
It's nice. You just need a break every once in a while. So we're going to relish it. We're going to appreciate it. And then when everything starts back up, and we picked up Little League for Cal. So we're kind of starting a new thing there. But it feels nice. It definitely feels activity lower.
It's a short lull. We're over. I just got hit with 35 calendar invites from my husband for sports for spring. And I love that it's in the calendar and it's obviously everything at once. So it feels worse. But I was like, oh, that lull felt over quickly when I got hit with all those.
Well, Little League's a bad offender. I know Ace plays baseball, but it's like, man, are there a million games here? What's going on? Can we do less games?
Yeah. And then I said this on the last podcast, but he's doing indoor flag football and he's so excited. So I'm excited for him, but I got hit with a lot. I got hit with a lot of invites.
Got hit with a lot.
Yeah. Cool. Enjoy that lull.
What's your low?
My lull is the trip back. My kids do really well with travel. And even yesterday they did well, honestly, but we left at 5 a.m. to drive to the airport. We got hit with, we were supposed to be back by 11 a.m. We got hit with a 3-hour delay.
Ugh,
we were boarding.
Weather or what?
Nope. We were boarding and the plane had maintenance issues.
Oh.
So they deboarded us. You know, with everything going on in the news, even though I know it's scare tactics, of course, my anxiety level went up. I'm like, what's wrong with the plane? And so they tried to blame it and say that it was like 100 degrees on the plane and like it was like the air, but I don't know. So we got bumped to a new flight. 3 hours later, we board that plane. Maintenance issues on this plane.
Really?
So then they claimed it was the lights. So we almost deboarded, but they came in, shut it down, restarted it, and then it worked good enough for them to say okay, which is always a little bit like, whoa. Okay. Yeah. Okay, here we go. So then we take off and we had turbulence because of weather the whole way back. And I don't do well with that, but my kids were fine-ish. I kept trying to grab Lola's hand and she was like, Mom, it's fine. And I was like, oh, okay,
it's
cool.
For me.
Yeah, it's for me. And then Lily puked because it was, but I had like these reflexes. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of like a good job. I had cups for them where I was putting snacks in their cups. So they had like a little cup holder. And I pulled one of these cups out of like, it was like, have you ever seen the movie with Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, when they drop the bottle of wine and she catches it? And that's like his.
And that was the reveal.
That was the like reveal that like maybe she also is an assassin.
Yeah.
I pulled this cup out like she grabbed that bottle of wine. Like I like pulled it over to her when I just looked at her and I was like, I think she's gonna puke. And then I pulled it right in front of her, at the perfect time. She puked a few times. She kind of yes, I think she got hair in her mouth. It wasn't, and it was like a little bumpy. It wasn't like I'm sick, but it was just like nightmare. And then we had like a cup of puke and then we had to dispose of it. But it was just like one of those flights where you're like, brutal. Yeah. Brutal.
I travel with, the legit barf bag because I don't trust Calvin. Yeah. He can't be trusted with motion sickness.
Yeah. But those are hard to like open up. I think the cup it was easier.
No. The barf bag with the circular plastic rim that then you can easily tie off. That is the peak of puke management, and I highly recommend you put one in your bag.
Well, I didn't have a kid that puked that much until now, and I was, again, really impressed with my skill sets to get that cup over there, but it was still a nightmare.
I'm impressed. Congrats.
Thank you. So anyways.
Another low where you're the hero.
Yeah. I know. I really love those. I pull it in. What was your low this week?
God bless all the people out there commuting, but last week, I had to go down to Palo Alto from Danville. So it took me an hour and a half if there was no issues. And I made the very foolish mistake to leave during rush hour to try to get home to see the kids on one of those nights. It took 2.5 hours to get home.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yep. It was horrific.
Just not moving? You're just on the highway not moving? Or what are you doing?
Well, that one I was going through San Francisco and the bridge approach. It was also raining. So I just feel like people can't drive in the rain. And it was just, I just sat there for 45 minutes on the bridge approach. And I was like, this is horrible.
Nothing worse than being stuck on the bridge approach or on the bridge. Like, I don't know. My mind goes to the worst places, but that's the worst place to be stuck in traffic.
It's always where it happens too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I was trying to have a good attitude. Like I had a couple podcasts teed up that I was like, oh, this will be, I'll make the most of my drive. And I made, on the way down my first time, it was like, made a couple phone calls, called Sarah, called mom. Like, it was fine. And then I listened to the like 2 podcasts I had teed up and then I completely ran out of content. And I was like, maybe I need an audio book. But I was in the middle of reading a romance. And romance on audio, it was cringe city for me. Oh, it was horrible. I was like shuddering. It was like, because when you read it and it's even just like a flirting scene, you kind of read it in like I read it in like a kind of a cool way or like, like, oh, some swagger. But then, the bad, like the voice
give me a little rendition of the voice that was on the audio. That's what I want to know.
Well, like when the girl was flirting, it was a lot of like, no, like she would like do the high pitch and it was like, oh God, I hate that so much. Like the actual copy of it was fine, but your voiceover of it was, ooh.
Yeah.
So I had to I just ran out of content. I was like, I really
Which is hard to do. But then when you're driving, it's hard to find new content. It's like,
Or, when you're just like, I was just also, I didn't want any content that had to do with work because I was just like exhausted from work.
Mm-hmm.
I had
you didn't want to listen to Sage Sisters and hear our own voices.
I'm fresh out of them. I've listened to them all. So anyways, the commute just about killed me last week. Yeah, but I also had a silver lining, which is like some people freaking do this every week.
I know. I don't know how people do that anymore. I used to have to drive a lot when I was working for Gallo, and I would drive all over the place to just sell booze, I guess.
To put it
bluntly, that's what I did. And I just was in the car all the time. Mm-hmm. But I did love, I always used it for phone calls to talk to people.
Yeah.
But when you don't have anybody else to call, there's nothing worse.
When you were gone, I was like twiddling my thumbs. I'm like, you're usually who I call to shoot the shit for hours and hours.
I know. We were just go, go, go the whole time in Boston. That it was like, and then when we had a lull, it would be like us all in one hotel room trying to get Lily a nap. And I couldn't call you that. It was always like you would have either been annoyed with how loud my kids were or me trying to be too quiet hiding in a bathroom.
Well, I felt like a loser. I kept calling, just going to voicemail. I was like, it's fine.
Sorry.
Everything's fine. I'll just keep driving.
One thing I have to bring up, I forgot. It should have been, this would be if my husband Phil had a low and he was allowed to say it. This was his low. But we were in the hotel room and it was a nice hotel room. It was pretty big, but everybody's in one. And we had our toothbrushes out sitting on like the top counter. Okay. And like the toilet's below it. Okay, it was one of those.
Oh, God, I'm nervous.
Yeah, it was awful. So I put my toothbrush back after brushing my teeth and was doing the face wipe or whatever. And I turned around and I guess I just knocked my toothbrush a little bit. And it hit the container that was holding his retainers, like the teeth.
No.
Right in the toilet.
His retainers
went in the toilet. And I had that moment of panic where I was like, do I just pull them out? Do I fish them out and not tell him? Or, because that would be real dirty. And then the whole time I'd feel guilty. You can't do that. And then that was just like, I just peeked my head out and said, Phil, something bad happened. And he came in and he was so grossed out. Yeah. Immediately threw them away. Like it was like, no, he was like, I can't come home and wash these. I can't boil them. I can't do enough to these things to make me put these back in my mouth
or whatever.
Yeah. So it was probably like, I don't know how much, but probably like $800 of retainers down the drain that we have to rebuy at some point. But that could have been,
I might have cleaned them for that. I got to be honest.
No, you couldn't. I get it. I wouldn't be able to put those back in my mouth either. I was having a hard time thinking about kissing him if he put them back in his mouth,
That's tough.
Yeah. So anyways,
even though it was your fault.
It was 100% my fault, but also like, it wasn't like, I can see how anyone would do it, that's my like help myself, but it was just like the wrong placement, a little bit of a nudge, and it just slow-mo tipped over, and it was awful. Sick. I wish I had my Angelina Jolie skills there where I would have like snagged them before they fell. That would have been a better use of my skills.
Oh my God, that's nasty.
Yeah.
That's going to haunt my dreams.
Yeah.
All right, let's move into our topic. You're up. What did you bring for us today?
So I was dealing with a lot of kid emotions on the travel. So this made me it sparked this topic in my mind. But helping kids navigate big emotions is kind of the overall topic.
Okay.
Especially while we all have big emotions. As adults, we can have bad days. We can have moments where you almost get a pass because something's going on in life or you're stressed or work or whatever. Yeah. And for kids, I don't think as often we give them a pass to just have big emotions when they need it. And we almost just try to push them through it in a quicker way. And so I wanted to have a conversation on that because what's the right approach? Maybe some tips and tricks on how to navigate those big emotions when the kids are going through it and how to help them cope. And also, our mom used to say this all the time, but we can't be mad at kids for just being a kid. And so if you are taking them to a restaurant or you are traveling on an airplane, these are things that even adults have frustrations with.
Yeah.
We can't expect them to not be kids in those moments and get mad at them. And so I've always taken that away. So that is the topic today, is just helping kids navigate big emotions.
Okay, I love it. It feels relevant in my house because we've been helping our youngest work through some anxiety issues. We've been going to therapy recently. So it's like I've been learning a lot too.
Yes.
About just how to help him work through big feelings and things he doesn't even quite understand. Yes. I think too, I could see this extending a bit into letting kids make mistakes. I feel like there's also a little flavor of this, which is like we almost expect perfection. And it's like totally unrealistic.
And like, I think that I have a hard time sometimes when I feel like they're being like disrespectful or they have an attitude towards me. I take it as like, don't disrespect me. You've got to act better. When in reality, they're just acting like kids. And so I think that's kind of where I wanted to take this a little bit too, is like how I can be better in those moments too, when like, what's the difference between disrespect versus them just being kids and dealing with emotions?
Well, how did it show up for you last week? I know travel always like adds variables.
It adds variables for sure. And there was always a point where we pushed it too far. So that was the biggest thing last week, is like we had a lot of fun activities and a lot of what we did was geared around kids, right? And so the first 2 days we came back to the hotel and even tried to give Lily a nap. And so we were really trying to do the right things in those moments. But even when you'd wake up from a nap and the other two didn't nap, but they were just a little bit like, we were off our schedule. Yeah. Kids do better with a schedule. And that's kind of the overall assessment that I took away from last week.
Yeah. It looked like you packed it in. I was thinking like when I travel with Chris, I kind of am the one sort of leading the charge usually because I push for the trip. Yeah. Otherwise he'd never leave the home, I feel. And I'm kind of like, okay, here's what I was thinking itinerary wise. And he always looks at me and he's like, pick a third of these items. Yeah. Like,
smart.
This is way too aggressive. It's going to be running all over feeling like he just is a slow operator.
I don't think
you heeded Chris's advice here.
No, we could have used Chris to like scale it back slightly because we just, when you have we had 3 days in Boston. And so we wanted to accomplish a lot. And there were so many fun things that we were like, let's do this. But there were moments where like we had planned like a restaurant we really wanted to go to. Yeah. And the kids were nuts. And so we pulled an audible and went to like a grab and go sandwich place that was really like good. I think it was a famous place in the North End. But it was like, instead of going to the restaurant that I want to go to and enjoying a glass of wine, let's go back to the hotel. Let's buy a bottle of wine, eat the sandwich, put the kids to bed. And we let the kids do the iPads in the hotel while we put Lily down because we're all in the same room. So we used tech in the right way, in my opinion, to like help that. And then Phil and I would put AirPods in at night when the kids would go to sleep. And we've been watching Jack Reacher, the new season.
Okay.
It's awesome. It's so good. And so we would have a
watching
nice
it together, both hooked up to the same
device. Yeah. So we were trying to have a cute moment. But the whole point is that the kids were having big emotions during certain parts of the day. Yeah. And that can be super frustrating. And so we were trying to pull audibles left and right to be like, okay, let's skip this. Let's go to a playground, which we did one day. One day we just absolutely stopped and just went to a playground and let them play. It was freezing out. It was my nightmare, but it's just what we had to do.
So what works for you when you're actually in a meltdown moment and pick a kid, any kid, having a moment of, let's not say disrespect, because I do think that's a bit different, but just having big feelings about something, upset about something, something's not fair. That's usually like our trigger over here.
Well, what I have found over here is that it's usually not about whatever's happening in the moment. And that took me a little bit to figure out, and so I found, and it's not gentle parenting. I know, like 100%, but being more patient. So Phil and I take our tone down a lot. And so when they are acting crazy, when you want to snap at them, what works better in this household, especially with one of my children I'm thinking of right now, is to take it to a place where you are more understanding and sitting with the child a little bit more and saying like, I hear you. I understand. What do you need? And just them talking through it a little bit more. And when we're calmer, it's not that they're completely rational. It's just that their level comes down a little bit. And so I found that my approach wasn't working originally when I wanted to come in harder and be like more of a aggressive tone. Authoritarian. Almost. Yeah. Let's figure this out. I realized that my child needed me to be a little bit more gentle and understanding, and that's okay. And like I don't love being considered, this generation is all gentle parenting either. I think that gets a negative connotation as well. And so it's about the kid understanding that you hear them.
One thing that helped me so much, just like wrap my head around this, was one thing I even like is the therapist that we hired for Calvin. She refers to herself as a brain specialist.
Mm-hmm.
And so I also like it, like in the sessions, Chris and I are both there with him.
Yeah.
And it's really like almost like family learning. But she has a physical model of a brain, but she also has this graph and there's colors on it. But it's basically like the back brain are the orange and reds. That's the anger. If you're in your back brain, you're flooded. You can't hear a reasonable argument. You can't reason, because reason is frontal cortex. So like sad and worried are both like you can move up in the brain.
Okay.
But if you're basically, she has these colors that go like dark green, light green, yellow, orange, red.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the scale of it is not good and bad. It's just positive and negative. So like the negative would be neutral would be yellow. Negative would be I'm using a really loud voice. Red would be I'm physically hitting, spitting, fighting, something like that. But we try not to use like the words good and bad. It's just back brain, like front brain.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's been really powerful. But like if they're in an orange or red headspace,
so
where they're
Calvin
yelling,
will point to the color. Is that how this works? Or you
Yep.
just know he's in this color?
No, I'll say like if he's really upset. And sometimes he's too in that moment, he can't even think about colors because picking a color would also move him to front brain. But that's actually one of the reasons, like how you get him out of back brain.
I see. Okay.
But for different kids, it's different. But for him, what works is just cuddling, taking those big emotions, giving him enough space. But also one thing that she told us is like, sometimes his would take 60 minutes. And she was like, that's too much.
Okay. Yeah.
So everyone should be able to calm down in like 10 or 15 minutes.
Okay.
So if he's really showing these huge orange or red, and he's not an angry guy, but he can be very upset, like a very big, almost like sadness is a blue that can go on top of any of those colors, but he can definitely do like an orange with a lot of blue.
Yeah.
Or a yellow with a lot of blue. And in those moments for him, it's about using the first 10 or 15 minutes to just get him into a space and even like have a couple soft prompting questions to get him to like move to front brain.
Yeah.
Like to be a reasonable person from like a really overwhelmed, flooded place. And I think just that context of like, okay, 10 minutes of cuddles. I'm not going to get into the why. He might be screaming, why did you do this? Or I don't want to go to school or whatever. And it's just like
don't even talk about the issue at all.
If he's in that headspace, it's not going to work. So just come here. Let's take some breaths with me, sweetheart. Like, let's, and then once he's in a different place, I'll be like, oh, that was a big feeling. Like, what color do you think that one was?
Yeah.
Right. And then he'll say, oh, I felt orange. Yeah. So it's like the color system
can start
for him
to talk about it
without
after
having
he's
like the adjectives or the vocabulary of like nuanced feelings. I feel like for Ace, and he's 6.5.
Yeah.
But the colors really help him because he is identifying how he feels and he's letting me know how he feels, but he doesn't always have the language for it. So the color system has really been powerful. We actually have colored discs that he can even point to if he's really like in a bad place.
Yeah.
But just that for me, if he's in that place, I used to try to reason with him when he was in like an orange place. Like I would say, well, this is why we did it. And, this is why I have that boundary, I would like try to use my almost, gentle reasoning. Right. My job as your mom is to keep you clean, safe, and healthy. And I didn't feel like that was a safe choice. And that's why I did it. But I'm like justifying. And he's not in a headspace to even hear that. So now I just don't go there.
Smart.
That's a huge learning for me. That like really, I think, changed the dynamic where I don't try to explain it.
Yeah.
I just let it be there until we're in a different headspace. And sometimes by then you don't even need explanation. He had to work through it. And sometimes he still wants to know and we'll talk through it, but just like not in that moment.
Yeah. I wish I had known that back a few years ago. So when Ace was 3 going on 4, That was his very difficult year, 6 months for sure, of emotions, and kids' brains are developing. He's growing. All kids go through something. It just depends. Each kid is individual at what age it's happening and what is the emotions that they're going through. But he was really tough for 6 months, and it would be more anger. So he didn't know how to express himself. When he was frustrated, it would go to anger, and it would be hitting. It would be all of these things. And at first we were trying to handle it where we were talking to him, trying to reason with him, be a little bit more authoritative. We took a step back and did not do that. I kind of mentioned that before. I've learned it at that time, and I still do that technique. But what I wish I would have known is to just like sit with them a little bit longer.
Yeah.
We would hold him and just wait for that time to pass eventually, and then try to talk through him. But I wish I had the color system for him because he was so young. He didn't know how to deal with his emotions at all. And he, we kind of joked. It was like, I didn't know what to do. Phil didn't know what to do. And eventually he grew out of it a little bit and kind of learned to cope a little bit better. But he was having night terrors at that time. All of these things it's all related. And so it was really scary as a parent to see your kid go through that because he was not himself in those moments of rage.
Well, and I think one cycle that I've heard and I could totally see happening is when they're in an orange or red state, like red especially.
Yeah.
And they're saying hurtful things. I hate you. It's hard not to then have an emotional response back.
Right.
And then I feel like it's easy to snap, to get authoritarian. Like, you can't talk to me like that. Like, what I mean? And it's like, they're in this flooded back brain place saying things that are very harmful.
Yeah.
And then as parents, we're reacting to that. And like, it just spirals the situation to like a terrible place. And it's like, it's super hard to do. But I think just being able to put space and be like, they don't mean anything they're saying in this.
Right.
In this headspace, and they're learning to regulate their emotions. Like, I cannot play ball. I cannot come in here and
thinking we're going to get to a solution or even try to be authoritative in that moment to get to,
well, and even like one thing I used to do, I used to say that hurts my feelings.
Right.
But again, it's like, I'm letting a kid hurt my feelings. Not really. I it just like wasn't the time or place, even for,
you're not teaching them in the moment. You might think you're teaching them.
It's not time to teach right here. It's not time to teach. It's time to like get their emotions down and train them how to go from back brain to front brain. That's it.
Well,
and not take the bait.
I love that. I think about like, okay, if I am on my period or something and I'm just in that day of the month where I am angry, you say anything to me, I'm going to be like either crying or angry. It's like, I can't be rational on that day. So how can I expect a kid to be rational in the red or orange stage? It's like, I want to be angry kind of on those days. You say something to me and I want to have a response. Let them have those feelings and don't be so, feeling like it's against you, or to your point, like it's not helping when you say something.
The other thing that works for us is just, he will not be in the mood to do something. And I think, Chris and I both come from, we grew up Catholic with a very like specific, if you join a team, for example, you should go to every practice, right? That is a value, that is showing up. When I said that's a commitment, that's honoring my word.
Are you saying you don't think that anymore, or how do you feel about that?
We pulled off it with Calvin. And I think he was showing some signs that were like more severe, more severe. But like, for example, yesterday he had a baseball practice and he was saying, I just don't want to go. I just don't want to go. And I kind of said, well, when he said it the first time, I said, well, we signed up for the team and, your dad's one of the coaches. Like we need to honor that. And then I watched his body kind of like go to a different place.
Right.
And I don't know if it's good parenting. I mean, I think there's times to hold boundaries and I think there's times to be flexible. And at least with this kid in this moment where he's making major strides towards improving this, I saw him like really kind of getting into a bad place. And I just told him, we want to try to make every game and we want to try to make every practice when we can, but we can make an exception today.
I think it's so individualized. If your kid is a big feeling kid or a neurodivergent kid or, things that like, if you have to be individualized. It can't be one size fits all for parenting, and especially with that. So I think that's smart.
He's
We
also
grew up
6.
that way.
I'm like, it's to me
Totally.
totally different if you have but it maybe not. I don't know. It's like, I think we got to be real flexible though.
Right. Well, and it's also like, if you're teaching them the core of teamwork, and you're teaching them the core of it's important to follow through on things, it's different than like a day where they are really having big emotions and missing a practice. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like anything else. You got to find the happy medium. It can't.
Well, and I've also
always
lived
be
through the
them.
experience of forcing him to go to that practice.
Right.
He performs terribly. He's super upset. He comes home and he's got bad behavior. Right. It's like, I played that game and I know it doesn't lead anywhere good.
Well, and you also know he's not the kid that's doing it just to get out of it. He's having real emotions. That's the difference, I think.
I think so too. It's not a manipulation. It's like he's going through something. So I think just being a little bit more flexible in terms of like, it's not a big deal if a 6-year-old misses a little league practice. Who cares?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like what I brought up on the last podcast with Lola and gymnastics. It is more of a class and less of a team. But for whatever reason, she was really against it. It's like, why am I forcing this? Let's find something else. You have to do an activity, but let's find something else. I will say I'm having a harder time navigating how to deal with Lola than Ace. Again, it was 3-4 years old. Lola's was about a year ago, and I think she's growing out of it. It's just, she's a little bit harder for me because I see the teen years. I can see her and I already like battling a little bit, and I'm trying to figure out a way for us to communicate better in those moments, so that way I don't have a hard couple of years ahead of me when she's a teen. But she's so like me. She's very hard-headed. Yep. In those moments, she knows exactly what to say to get under people's skin.
She's extremely verbal.
She's extremely verbal and very smart.
Very stubborn, very smart. And she's a bit of a natural alpha. You know what I mean by that? Where it's like, she wants people to do it her way. That's very important to her. So she will, put a stake in the ground. She'll double down. Yeah.
But that
is tricky.
This soft approach, though, seems to be working, and I'm going to keep going to it.
That's the thing. She's got a gooey center, and it's about tapping into the gooey center versus fighting the hard exterior.
And maybe, what worked where instead of like letting her be and leave her in her emotions, which I was kind of told originally, is like, let her have her emotions and you don't react to them. I think what's working better for me now is to actually just go sit with her, read a book, or be next to her, because she doesn't want to be alone.
Her version of Orange is super sassy, right?
Totally.
And that's like how it presents for her, but she's still in a defensive, angry headspace, not I'm thinking rationally, and this is like a choice that I've made that I feel intellectual about. It's like, no, it's just, it's coming from a different place.
And for her, I brought this up originally because I was thinking about her, but the disrespect versus kid behavior. Yeah. She is not trying to be disrespectful in those moments, because to your point, she's in orange or red. She's maybe trying to get a reaction. Totally. And she knows that will. But she is not a disrespectful kid, even though it presents itself like that. Yeah. And then to try to reprimand, like, don't be disrespectful, don't roll your eyes, isn't working. And so we have to come up with a new approach. And so
I can already hear our brain specialist saying, you got to get her into a place where she's reasoning. Yeah. Like that, like, we'll ask her questions and prompts to move her brain up to a place where she has to make a choice or think about what color she is, or, but again, give it time to like actually come down, cuddle, or figure out what your thing is. Yeah. To get her more neutral, and then try to do these prompts to get her into a different headspace. But you're probably right. And it's hard not to react because she's so good at saying the thing that's hurtful.
100%. Well, and she's strong. And so sometimes, she appears to be strong, and so you think she can handle something, and really she's very sensitive. And so you just have to remember that. One thing is, it's like, give the kids grace, allow them to be children. If you are asking them, this is another thing. If you are asking them to do something like go sit at a restaurant that kids don't really want to do, or if you are asking them to travel long periods of time on a plane or a car, you can't have a reaction as a parent to them just being kids either. You kind of have to roll with the punches and be a little bit more flexible. So giving kids grace, and then giving yourself grace, because they're like, I don't think I handled Ace in those moments the best at the beginning, and I had to read books and I had to talk to people to figure out a different approach. And it took Phil and I saying together, okay, this isn't working. Let's reset what's working, what will work. Let's try some things. And I do think parenting is a little trial error. See what works for your kid, but also always be thinking of what you could do differently a little bit.
When I think kids do go through phases too.
Yeah. Like, 100%.
Like sometimes they do kind of grow out of these bad patterns, and it's just a little bit of waited out too. Yeah. But I think your point about take them to restaurants and let them be kids, I do feel strongly that our society is too hard on kids in public.
Yes.
And I remember I was on a plane once and a mom came on with her baby and she passed out these little like treats with a note that said, "Thank you for your patience. You know, I'm flying with my infant." And I looked at her, I said, "You should not have to bring a treat to feel like you deserve to be here with your child who is acting like a normal baby." Like,
adults can tighten up.
I appreciate the thoughtfulness on this, but like, to be honest with you, you should not feel an obligation. You have every right to be here with your baby. Yeah. And I do think we've just gotten like really tough on kids. And I think a lot of parents like use the iPad at restaurants because they feel that social pressure of like the other people in the restaurant have so little tolerance for kid noise. And it's like,
it's so true. We need to give other people grace. You know, it does stink if you're flying by yourself to be stuck next to the family. Don't get me wrong. Like, I
try to avoid that like the plague, but also it's like, it's not their fault.
It's not their fault. And even, you know, we got a couple like boys, you know, like your kids are doing so good on their flight. Good for them, which is so sweet. But also you think about it like that on the flip side, it's like, but what if they were acting out a little bit? Like, you're going to think they're a bad kid or we're bad parents? Like, they're just kids. You never know what kind of moods they're going to be in.
Yeah. Did you ever read that book? I read it when I was pregnant. I can't remember all of it, but it was like Bringing Up Bebe. And it was about like how French mothers think about pregnancy and childhood. And it was definitely like a little bit anti-American because they were just like, Americans will stuff a screen in front of their kids and we take them out. And like, American kids feed their kids, you know, chicken nuggets and French fries. And like our kids eat the full palette of food. And I'm like, you know, the expectation of kids is different. And, but I think there are some elements of European society allows for kids to be out and about, and there's more tolerance of that. And I think that is a factor. Like the 100%. Social tolerance of kids is higher in Europe.
Yeah.
And thus, you know, they feel like they can take them and they put up, you know, they put up with more. And I think the food is a little bit of like a,
yeah, I mean, we've probably conditioned our kids to say like, "Oh, you want this versus that?" Sure. You know, like, which we, you know, it's almost like if this is what's for dinner, this is what's for dinner, and exploring their palate more than just saying eat the same thing all the time. I think we could be better at that for sure as a society. But I agree with you though. It's like the mom guilt or the tolerance for it. It is why parents do what they do. Last night, we got home from a flight and we didn't have any food at the house. So we went to our local restaurant and they're very sweet there. But there was like a couple booths and, you know, Lily had it. She was absolutely, you know, her emotions were crazy.
She was done.
As she should have been. But she was kneeling in her chair and I had my hand on the back of it. And I leaned over because Lola had spilled her water to clean up water. And in that moment, she tipped backwards.
Oh, gosh.
It was just an epic fail. And so she didn't get hurt severely, but she started to cry and wail like as if it scared her.
Yeah.
And so I picked her up and, you know, the parents around, there were some nice, pleasant looks of like, is she okay? And then there was some people looking at me like I was the worst mother of all time. And it was just like, in that moment, I told Phil, I'm going to take her outside. You pack up everything, pay, and meet me outside. And I shouldn't have had to do that. I should have maybe like walked her into the other side just till she calmed down and then come back in. But I felt like we had to pack our things up and leave because I was getting some of those judgment looks. Like, you know.
I know. And it's hard to change a culture, but if on board with all the other like slight culture shifts I'd love to see with Sage Sisters and like what we stand for is just a little more cultural tolerance of kids in the wild, being kids, being silly. And I don't know why this is coming up for me, but it's kids sports, I think also like brings out a flavor of this. It's like, oh yeah, let the kids just be silly. They don't need to be little soldiers. you know?
Right.
They're not going to be serious in practice and focused and disciplined and like focused on competition.
Nor
They're
should
going
they
to be
have to.
goofballs.
Right.
They're going to be
Right.
goofballs some of the practice, and like
Yeah.
leave space and room for that. And I mean, we were at a flag football game yesterday. I have never had a more repulsive taste in my mouth towards the coach of the other team.
Oh,
and
no.
if this finds him, take this as a PSA, because this was unhinged coach behavior of 6-year-olds. Super disciplinarian, like screaming at the kids. Like,
oh no,
they were doing cheers on the sidelines, and he was getting them to like stop doing cheers to focus. And I was just like, oh my God, this guy, I'm grateful I'm not married to him. What a nightmare.
Were the parents of those kids reacting a certain way? Maybe they're conditioned to know.
Hard to say. Hard to say. I was looking into their eyes to see if like none of them were making the facial expressions of the entire mom group on our side. We were all like, but again, it's like the expectation, like, let them be kids, let them cheer, let them, you know, there's it seemed like there was like not enough space for that. And like the expectation that we're going to expect these 6-year-olds to be perfect was too much. That's bringing up a story from last summer that I have definitely talked about on the pod, but Ace was on this all-star team, and I think we pushed for the all-star team too soon, but he was at a tournament where he wasn't going to play this game, and the coach was very open that he wasn't going to play Ace. And so we had given him a pep talk of like, this is a learning lesson. You go in there and you be supportive and you cheer. And he was doing so good. I mean, this poor kid was very upset that he wasn't going to play. And he was in the dugout chanting. He was doing all the things that I thought was so cute. But he was also playing with the Gatorade bottles a little bit. And one of his other buddies and him were kind of blending Gatorades and whatnot. Yeah. In my opinion, obviously I'm his mother, but it was not distracting. It was very kid-like. And I was so proud of him. The coach said something to me that he needs to be more respectful, and he needs to like in that moment he was being too much of a distraction, and I almost lost it on this guy. Like I still hold a grudge, and I will 15 years from now. Like I was just like, are you joking? Like I watched a kid in there who was struggling to not play because he's so competitive. Support his teammates and congratulate them when they came in the dugout and high five and start chants. You didn't see that? You're going to talk to me about the one time he was blending a Gatorade bottle, which all the kids wanted to do and did throughout the season. Like I was infuriated. And so to this, I would have been too. Yeah. That's the same kind of coaching vibe that I witnessed yesterday, and I was just repulsed by. Yeah. The other thing I will say is I don't think we leave enough space for kids to make mistakes. And I think in sports, one of the hardest lessons in sports is to be aggressive, but not too aggressive, to play good defense, but not foul, to go in there and get the ball in a group in soccer, but don't throw an elbow. It's like, it's a tricky thing to tell kids to be aggressive, but not too aggressive. And of course, in that learning exploration, there's going to be mistakes. Either an elbow accidentally gets thrown or you're too close on defense. And like the way that I see parents, and again, I think it's that very like protectionist energy for their own kid, but there is no grace for a mistake from another kid on the other team. Like no grace.
It's like that kid's not trying to harm your child.
Exactly. You think that was malicious. That looked like someone who doesn't quite understand body control to me.
Right. Yeah.
But parents jumping up and then, you know, both teams barking. And it's like, this is just another place though, where it's like sports parents go ballistic mostly over this exact issue where they perceive another person to be too aggressive towards their kid or something. It's like,
it's just too much.
Not, you know, and I'm sure there are some specific things where you got an asshole coach telling his kids to be too aggressive, but that is the minority. For the most part, these are kids learning the right place on the balance and trying to figure it out. And there's just not enough grace for that either.
Listen, I'm a competitive mom as well. I love winning, you know, but to say all that, I also say parents are crazy. I have seen parents that I absolutely disagree with on the sidelines yelling at even their own kid. It's like, cool it. They're trying to figure it out. If you want to talk to your kid when you get home about how they played or whatever, that's on you. I strongly think that you're putting too much pressure on them, even having those conversations.
Yeah.
But parents are nuts when it comes to sports. It is like that. It's like, let your kids have emotions. Let your kids be kids. let them figure it out, and like don't embarrass them by yelling at them on the sidelines, or don't embarrass another kid on the other team by yelling at them on the sidelines. Like, you're so right. That's crazy.
Well, and like I saw this over and over. I coach basketball, but another player on the other team would do a hard foul. Not malicious. They're learning to play defense and they did a hard foul. And the kid might have had a reaction like oh my God, like that scared me, or like, whoa, I don't know what to do.
Right.
And that's usually when the parent will start barking, like, wait a second, that was on purpose. Yeah. And I always just took the kid who felt that way, pulled him aside, and I said, they're learning how to play defense, and you got the right call. They called a foul on that. So nice job. Right. But like, just take the temperature down on it and let them know that that kid didn't do it on purpose.
Yeah.
Like, make it clear that that's part of the game. Sometimes, and you got the foul call. So like, calm down. We're not going to like hold a grudge against that person. This is sports. Calm down. And like, meanwhile, I'm looking at their parents like, don't you like sit, sit. Like,
yeah. Well, it goes with saying though, kids watch us. So if, we all have our moments, but if you are constantly not figuring out a way to control your emotions or having coping mechanisms for yourself, that is where your kid's learning it. So you can see that. You're like, okay, that parent matches that child, unfortunately, because they don't know how to cope with their emotions either. Like,
I know.
It is like, as we're talking about how to regulate and help our kids, we also need to look at ourselves and say, like, even though I've gone through 40 years of my life, almost 40, not quite 40 yet, almost 40 years of my life. I mean, maybe I don't know how to regulate my emotions and I need to get it in check. I did like have a moment at one of Ace's games where the ref wasn't calling travel on the other team. And I was like, travel. And I was like, okay, cool it. Like, that's a child. That's a child, And so like, I have to like regulate, but like,
well, I sometimes just run out of gas at the end of the night. Like, the only time I'm tempted to yell, like if this thing where it's like, you think you're like on the verge and then you have like a little rest and a glass of water and everything's fine.
Yeah. Rest for sure.
But like when I'm exhausted at the end of the day and my kid's not listening to me to like go brush your teeth or put on the pajamas or do the thing that's going to get this over the line, that is the time where I am most tempted to like lose my own emotional regulation, because it's like I am out of gas.
Yeah. Phil does a good job in those moments because I am a scheduler. Well, and like I'll always, it's like we do dinner, then we shower or whatever the schedule is, right? Sometimes he pulls an audible like we did on vacation, where it's like, don't shower them tonight. You are not in the right headspace for that. If they're not listening, we'll do it in the morning. Or maybe they'll shower tomorrow night. It's not worth it. And I have a hard time not doing our schedule. And it's just so key. It's like,
call the audible.
Well,
and I've been better lately when I'm feeling like that to go to Chris and be like, I'm on empty.
Yeah.
SOS, get your ass up here and like help me get over this hump. Yeah. Tap in. Or you go into like, I need to be the secondary parent. You're going to be the primary one right now because I have no energy for this left. I've been parenting, whatever it was, all evening, all afternoon, all day. I'm out. And so I think that's helped. And again, I have to be cognizant of like, when I feel like yelling at my kid, usually it's I'm on empty.
Oh yes. The kids are acting maybe a little bit crazier, but
they just don't listen. This is like what kills me. It's like, my kids are great kids, but they're kids and they want to goof around at night.
Right.
And again, I love that they have a great relationship with each other. I love that they're silly, but I'm exhausted. I want you guys to go to bed and no one's listening to me.
Yeah.
It's like,
gosh, have I been there? Is that relatable? It's so true. It's like every parent deals with this.
Well, and then I try to, I have my steps that I try to do too. I think I mentioned this in a previous podcast, but I try really hard not to yell.
Yeah.
And so I have my, please put on your pajamas. I'm ready to start bedtime. We're out of time, then they ignore me. And then I say, it's one level up, right? This is one level up. It's time. I'm serious though. Like, go do it. Ignored. Then the third is, and maybe I need to cut one of these steps, but this is what works for us. I said, now you're on the consequence line. Like, this is the last warning. If you don't do it now, you're losing a back rub or a book or whatever they want. Like, you're losing it. This is our I'm at the consequence line.
Yeah.
And then, if they blow through that, like, I execute a consequence.
Yeah.
And then usually they're in tears, but I got to hold that line for next time.
Yeah.
Or else they won't do the consequence line.
Totally. You got to hold the line. I'm working on that. But I do agree. I've tried these layers. I've given them 5 even. This is 1,
that's
2,
too
3.
much.
It's too much. I got to fix it because I'm going to take your advice. I'm going to do 3 in a consequence line. I've never called it a consequence line.
Yeah. I like have a
key.
like you're at the line. You're at the line. I'm here. I'm not raising
Yeah.
my voice, but you can tell I'm serious.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the consequence line. And then if you cross it, then I just am like a stone cold killer. I'm just like, no book.
Yeah.
Mom, no, we'll do it. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Not going to happen.
And then that's usually when I'm tapping in Chris to do support because now I have to be bad cop. He needs to be good cop. We need to like teamwork this to get it over the hump. Mm-hmm. And then they're in tears because they didn't have their book. And I'm like, tough cookies.
Well, even the threat of bad cop in here, which is obviously Phil, helps.
Yeah.
He doesn't love it.
You're gooey.
I'm going to get dad. Oh, then they listen. That's like the last line for me. Consequent line is just saying the word dad. And they're like, oh.
Totally. Well, anyway, try 3 steps, see if it helps.
I will.
We'll see. It's always an experiment.
It's good advice, and I will try it and report back. But I love talking through this, though, because it's like anything else. You get tips from people. Different things work for different kids. Mm-hmm. But it's about trial and error a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to try that out because it's obviously in those moments not working. And, as my kids are getting older, they are being more rational at times. So I feel like it's getting a little bit easier in those moments, but it's all good to just like share tips and tricks. So love this.
All right. Well, great topic. Let's move into in matter here. What is your obsession this week?
So my obsession is these headphones that we bought for the kids for travel. Okay. So I've seen them a lot. I don't think it's like earth shattering, but they are like the soft headphones that go around and they have like the animal ears. But I pulled the trigger this time and got everyone these headphones for the plane, and they can sleep in them. We used them the reason too was in the hotel room. When you're all sharing a hotel room, it's nice to have. Yeah. And again, I say when you need the iPads, when you need whatever
travel
it
is the best use case.
Yes. And it's like you can download stories. You can do all of these different things. It doesn't have to be watching a show if you're against that. But these headphones helped us so much. And each kid could listen to whatever they were into. They were wonderful. And they stay on their head. They worked great. They were Bluetooth. So it actually connected to any device that they had. And it helped us the whole week. I mean, it was a game changer. They were great travel. The hotel room worked great.
I've had some bad experiences with Bluetooth that like won't connect or whatever else. So we went back to the wired ones because I was just like, I don't want to deal with a Bluetooth headphone situation.
Well, and the only issue was that the Bluetooth didn't connect to nor did ours, by the way, the adult headphones connect to, we were on JetBlue this time and they had the TV and it would only be a plug-in.
Yeah.
Whatever. But honestly, the Bluetooth worked great on all of our devices. We didn't have any issues all week with those.
Maybe
working.
They're getting better too.
Maybe. So I'll link the brand we got. They were inexpensive. They were comfortable. The kids loved it because they got to pick their own color, and it was just like such a game changer with travel. And
did they have any that like didn't have animals? Because I know like
they were minimal ears.
Okay.
Honestly, we got all the ear ones. I'll see if I don't know because they wanted the ear ones, but it wasn't like super kitty. Like Ace was totally fine having this blue headset on.
Okay. Because Grace came, she's funny. She goes, I want headphones that say Beats on the side. I go, not a chance. Those are Dr. Dre Beats. She must have seen him somewhere and she saw it like in real life. She was like, ooh, those look cool. And she like saw the side. I was like, you're not getting Beats. Who do you think you are? But she likes the kind that look over the ear like the teenagers sometimes have. Yeah. So she's very aware of what the age above her is doing.
Yeah. Well,
so even the other day she asked if she could wear oversized hoodie with a slick back. And I'm like,
what's a slick back? Like slick back ponytail?
Yeah. Like she knew, she had like observed that like the girls that she thought were cool all had this look of an oversized hoodie with, a middle part and the hair that pulled back.
Yeah.
I think of it as sort of like the Alex Cooper, how she always.
Totally. Yeah.
But Grace calling it a hoodie and a slick back. I was like, gosh, she's so really aware. I don't like that. She wanted the Beats and the slick back. So.
Well, I mean, it's just kids. Let them be kids. They're all, when they get to that age, it's like anything else. It's like they want this water bottle, they want this, that, and you have to figure out your line on that stuff. But
yeah, I figure slick back hair. How bad
so far it worked for us, and honestly, it was just the comfort factor. You can lay down on your pillow, or you can lay down anywhere, and they
stay on.
They stay on. Mm-hmm. It was great. So, huge obsession.
That's awesome.
After last week, yeah. What's your obsession this week?
My obsession is Etsy. I had forgot about it a little bit. It like comes in waves for me, but I love it for gifts.
Yes.
And I would say like, the Christmas gift we got Dad, we got him some bourbon drinking glasses, and we etched like some of his favorite quotes in the bottom. And it just was this like really thoughtful personal gift that I felt like super excited to give him. Mm-hmm. I also absolutely love it for custom upholstery. So, we were Chris's office. I was making this a daybed, and I had a headboard, but I wanted it to look more like a couch. So I matched the headboard. I made these custom bolster pillows as the arms. And again, like some amazing craftsperson charging a reasonable amount for this item that matched something like very specifically. And also I finally put curtains in my office here. I'll turn my camera around.
Oh my gosh, I haven't even seen them yet.
Okay, you ready?
The big reveal. Well, I have to admit, the screen is a really low reveal. This is not the best reveal.
Okay, well.
They do look nice, though. It was, we needed a bigger screenshot of it. We saw a little bit of the curtain, but.
Okay, well, maybe I'll send a picture. We can shoot it. But again, it was like, I picked out this really colorful, beautiful fabric. I needed a very specific length.
Yes.
They came. They look amazing. If I do say so myself.
It's a good call out. I kind of forgot about Etsy for the craftsmanship. I have used it when we were remodeling our kitchen. We needed these floating shelves. And so I found somebody that did the exact measurement of the floating shelves that we needed. The custom stuff. That was years ago. I forgot about that. Yeah. I think about it like gifts. I think about it like specializing, personalizing stuff, but it's so key. You're right. To do the
and it feels
stuff.
Good because they have their little shop and you can read about the person.
Yeah.
And it's like these are craftsmen all over the country and the world. It's like I feel so good supporting that kind of business too. And it's usually stuff that doesn't need to come tomorrow. So it's like it comes in a month, that's fine.
Yeah.
So anyways, I love the recent custom upholstery items that
Great call out. Supporting small businesses, getting what you need.
Yeah.
I forgot. Yeah. Good call. Okay. Good obsession.
All right. Well, that's a wrap for today. Let's get on with our day. We have much to do.
Let's do it.
But don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Sage Parents. You can check out the free Kids in Tech guidebook there, which is just sageparents.org/guidebook. We are so grateful for those of you who rate us 5 stars, please. But that really helps us get discovered. And a lot of people are finding us because moms are sharing it in their mom group chat. So appreciate the recommendations. Keep the feedback coming. I want to do a user feedback. So check us out on Instagram and we'll do some prompts for some questions that we'll do on a future podcast. And thanks for following along. We're so grateful you're here. All right, Anne. Lilas.